Alright, so we finally got the gearbox bolted to the back of the engine. Thank you very much for the help, Bridget. My apprentice, she was able to come around to my place one day after trade school and give me a hand to get this lifted in, because I definitely wasn't going to try and do it myself. I got things pretty squared up, pretty even between the frame rails. Our shifter hole is fouling a bit on our gear selector, so I need to trim that. The shifter hole isn't really centered in the transmission tunnel anyway, so once I trim that, I'll be able to jack this up a little bit more and hopefully drill through the floor and get it mounted. Alright, so we finally got the holes drilled into the floor, but we're not ready to bolt the cross member up for the final time just yet. So, got our 8mm bolts ready to go, but it's not recommended to just bolt the cross member straight to this flimsy floor pan. This is only 1.5mm thick, and you can see with the bolt and the washer there's no surface area to clamp to in the floor, so the torque of the engine twisting will definitely over time flog out these holes, and you might even pull the bolt straight through the bottom of the floor. Now, the company that supplies the transmission mount actually recommends to make a top plate to sit above the floor pan to clamp to the cross member, so we sandwich that thin floor plate between the two brackets. So here's one I made earlier. I honestly don't know why Jags that run don't supply one with a kit, but you have to make your own. So I've made this out of 8mm thick plate, which is definitely overkill, and once I bolt that together, it's going to have a lot more support, a lot more surface area to clamp to, and we're not going to damage our floor. It's not even at the moment, but that's alright. I've got a 1000 Nm rattle gun that'll make quick work of this plate steel, and it'll clamp shut and sandwich it down nice and flat. But I do have one problem before we can get to that. Just where the cross member ended up, when I drill all my holes, we ended up right near a factory drain plug in the floor pan, so I had to go and get my welder from Dad's and bring it back here, and I'm going to have to weld up this hole before we can bolt the gearbox and cross member to the floor for the final time. So let's get to work. Another job done, welded in a washer, got a lot more support there now, and Honestly, I was gonna weld up the hole in the washer, but my welder was giving me a lot of trouble and it wasn't feeding any of the wire, and this should have been a 20-second job, and it honestly took me about an hour to weld that up. So I'm done. I'll put the plate on it, sandwich it together, and move on to the next job. Alright, so the next job is fitting our clutch master cylinder, and I've had to shave down one of the ears. That's how large or pronounced it was previously, and I've had to grind down the peak or the edge to clear the brake booster. And I also have some M8 by 30 mounting bolts I've had to cut down to about 20 mil, because when we put them in from the back, they're going to touch where the reservoir sits, so I've had to cut them down as well. So now we can fit this in the car and figure out the routing for the hydraulic clutch line. Alright, so this is the way I've routed the clutch line. It's coming out of the slave cylinder. I'm going to have to put a P-clamp either here or maybe up here. Bring that in a bit, possibly like that, so it's not rubbing the chassis. Goes over the gearbox. Over here, it comes back up. I've got a billet P clip there, and it goes up into the master cylinder. Alright, and here's the finished product. I put a nut insert into the transmission tunnel so I can fit the billet P clamp, and I fit some spiral split tubing around the clutch line as it goes over the gearbox. Alright, and the final piece of the puzzle for the clutch assembly was to make a new extended clevis. Here's the original one. I had to drill out the nut on the end and weld in a new nut to suit UNF, because it was a fine thread imperial bolt. So that's the standard one I modified, and here's an extended one I made just if I need some extra length. So I just did that with some box steel and a nut on the end. So now I can fit this up to a clutch master cylinder and the clutch pedal, and that is a clutch system done. Alright, and something else I've gone and done is gone and got some new valve covers. So these will replace the pretty average looking LS ones. So they're vintage style, black finned. So yeah, nice old school look. How about we chuck them on and see how it makes the engine look. Alright guys, well, it's Christmas Eve 2022, and that means that it has taken me 10 months to get this video out. Honestly, I was finished with it about 6 months ago. I just had to do this outro, and I just totally fell into a funk and just was totally not in the mood to make any videos or do anything Datsun related. So yeah, I'm a bit upset it took me 10 months to get this video out, and I haven't really been working on the car for the later half of this year, truth be told. But I think that's mainly because the next task at hand is rewiring the car from scratch, and I've kind of haven't been looking forward to doing it. And life's gotten in the way. I've probably spent the better half of the last 6 months redoing all the landscaping at my house. So that took up a lot of my time as well. That's all done now. So now I'm pretty much ready to get back on the Datto in the new year. But I've still been buying parts. Let's see. Got a brand new front bumper bar for the car. I don't think it's steel chromed. I think it might be highly polished aluminium. But I've got a brand new front bar. Got my dash over. I've got to fix up all the cracks in it, like every Datsun dash. I've got a plastic welding kit to do that. Here is the next job, which I've kind of been avoiding. Complete rewire. I rebuilt the alternator, new bearings, new regulator. It's all ready to go. I have a fuse panel, a MIDI fuse panel to replace the fusible links that were in the car. I have a 15 gang relay panel that houses 20 fuses as well, so that can replace all the old crummy steel relays that are all over the place in the Datsuns. Got new battery cable. I'm going to be relocating the battery to the boot, so I've got a battery box, plenty of wiring, 2 gauge earth and power leads, so I can run the battery from the boot. So I've pretty much got everything good to go. I just need to get out of the funk I've kind of been in and get to work. And the last big ticket item I have is I bought this Edelbrock ProFlow 4 EFI system. So this is a complete standalone ECU harness and intake to run the motor. This wasn't cheap, not by a long shot. It almost cost me $4,000 Australian. However, I didn't have any of the parts that I needed. I didn't have a factory LS intake, I didn't have injectors, I didn't have a wiring harness, I didn't have an ECU, and trying to source all those parts even second hand was probably gonna be looking at around $2.5 grand regardless. So the 3.5, 3.6 that I paid for this, it's all brand new. It's kind of plug and play. You need about 4 or 5 wires to get the motor running. It's all self-learning, and it'll keep with that old school look. The only downside is because it's got a high-rise manifold, I don't think it's going to be able to all fit under the bonnet. So I think I'm going to have a hole in my bonnet with an air cleaner sticking out, and probably later end down the track a reverse cowl bonnet scoop as well. So yeah, sorry it's taken so long to get this video out. I honestly can't believe it was February when I first started making this video. But we got there in the end, and I'll just say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everybody for 2022, and hopefully in the new year onto bigger and better things, and I can get started with this wiring. Alright guys, thanks for watching.